Just when you thought it was safe to swim in our lakes and rivers,
there was teeth marks in both ankles and blood coming down.
people report attacks by freshwater fish as big as boats.
As I finally come out and couldn't get a hold of him, he just started spinning with me.
This thing made them look like a minnow.
Monster Quest searches for a fish nasty enough to eat alligators.
That is an alligator gar.
Amazonian specimens that devour small children. Using lures fit for a great white.
Yeah, it looks pretty good. I think it's going to work good.
Thought that's got to be like a wolf, something big.
Wow, that was close.
Witnesses around the world report seeing monsters. Are they real or imaginary? Science searches for answers on Monster Quest. Every summer, millions of vacationing families head for freshwater lakes and rivers to cool off and have fun. But they are not alone. Their splashing and laughing has attracted attention from a toothy monster laying in wait.
Next thing I know, wham! I just got hit, and it was full force.
Was very hungry, and it took a chance on something it saw dangling in the water.
About like 20,000 needles sticking in both sides of your hand.
And we caught some huge ones, as big as about the best boat.
Are these stories fact or fiction? Monster Quest will travel the world looking for proof, gauging the danger to humans, using science to unlock the mystery on how big these creatures get. We begin in the Amazon River. The target, a monster catfish. Catfish have no scales. Their bodies are either naked or covered in bony plates. They have up to 4 pairs of barbels, used mostly for detecting food, but in some species can deliver a poison strong enough to hospitalize a human. And if stories are to be believed, these giants are big enough to swallow small children whole.
The big ones can take a small kid. They'll be swimming in the water, and they get a little deeper like this, and they dive under, and the catfish will get them.
The dark, murky waters of the Amazon hide many dangerous creatures, like piranha, caimans, and snakes. It is also home to the giant red-tailed catfish. The record caught on rod and reel was 54 inches long and almost 108 pounds. But locals say they catch them much bigger.
But this big, and it's bigger than him. That he's caught here.
Native Amazonians claim to regularly catch 50-pound catfish and occasionally hook monster cats over 6 feet long and 200 to 300 pounds. Mike Nee and Brian Coe are Colorado sports fishermen on a Monster Quest dream fishing trip. Their goal? To catch one of these specimens.
Ever since I was a little kid, I've always wanted to come see the Amazon River.
They will be joined by local fishing guide Mark Kobos, who has been guiding sport fishermen in these waters for over 20 years.
This is dangerous out here. If you're not careful, it can be dangerous out here.
According to Kobos, the many twists and turns of the river create deep pools where the big cats are said to hide, much the way they have for many centuries. In January of 1500, Spanish explorer Vicente Yanis Pinzon first landed on what is now the coast of Brazil. He also discovered the estuary of the Amazon River. He called it Rio Santa Maria de la Maldulce. For 350 years after, the area remained a wilderness, inhabited mostly by indigenous people, until 1850, when steamboat navigation began to open up the Amazon. It is still remote enough that big fish stories don't reach the outside world.
People get up and down here by the river taxis, and that's the roads, the waterways.
This lodge will serve as the base camp for the giant catfish expedition. It's located in the heart of territory prowled by catfish and other record-breaking giants.
We chose this area because after fishing all around the Amazon, this was the area that produced the most trophy-sized peacock bass, and it's 20 minutes from where the world record was caught.
Mike Messina is the only biologist from North America currently working in this area to study this beautiful game fish.
Fish is 4 pounds, 6 ounces. About 3 years ago, we started a large tagging program. We weigh and measure the fish. They're caught hook and line. We go ahead and we put a tag in the fish, get a GPS coordinate so we know the latitude and longitude, and let the fish go. And the idea of this particular program here is to try and recapture the fish, determine the growth rates and the movement of the fish.
Although Messina's work primarily concentrates on the peacock bass,
49.
He's well aware of the catfish that roam this river.
There are a lot of big fish down here. There's some very large catfish and other types of Amazonian natives, native fish that grow very, very rapidly.
For generations, people living along the shores of the Amazon have told stories of giant catfish slurping up their children. And to this day, the deep, dark pools where these giants are said to live are avoided.
I've heard stories of catfish wash up on the beach and you see the feet sticking out of his mouth. It's a small child that can catch.
This woman says it happened to one of her family.
Back then, the parents didn't let the kids and children play too much in the river because the river they had a lot of catfish, big catfish, and they call it fera, which is like a beast.
During the mid-1970s, a local boy was attacked here on the Rio Negro River, where Nee and Kobos are searching for giant cats.
Ele tinha 5.
Yeah, he was 5 years old.
The young boy was Celestina Valena's cousin, and she remembers the tragic story like it was yesterday. Fishing guide Mark Kobos translates.
Okay, during the season when the river goes down, okay, and all the schools of fish come out of the lagoons to the main river, okay, all the guys in the village go out to fish.
Her cousin and another young boy followed the men to the lagoon in their own tiny canoe. Suddenly, their canoe was struck with a violent thud.
A catfish jumped out of the water, hit the canoe, and the boy fell in the water. So everybody, dived in and tried to find him. And but they couldn't find him. They searched all afternoon. After a week, they had reports that they had found the piraiba, the red-tailed catfish, with a small child in it, and it was dead on the shore.
The catfish was said to be about a foot larger than a man, or about 6.5 feet long. The catfish apparently choked on the 60-pound boy. Catfish are considered indiscriminate feeders, eating crayfish and mussels off the bottom and minnows and fish near the surface. They have also been known to eat small ducks and muskrats. They are known to grab onto just about anything that comes into range, a fact that has cultivated a dangerous sport where man is the intended bait.
Noodling's the art of catching catfish with your hands. I mean, with your bare necessities.
Lee McFarland is a well-known noodler from Stillwater, Oklahoma.
Different places, it's different names. It's grappling, it's hogging, it's stumping. Well, the only reason we've always called it noodling is because trying to get hold of that fish like grabbing a wet noodle. To me, I've been doing it with my hands ever since I was a kid. And I'd rather do this than catch them with a rod and reel anytime. Not everybody does it, and everybody thinks you're crazy if you do, but...
McFarland targets flathead catfish, which can be up to 5 feet long and weigh over 120 pounds.
Basically, you just find rocks in water and just start walking around them until you find holes underneath them. Just got to block all the holes off and reach in there and see what's in there. Try to get them by the bottom lip, and once you get that bottom lip with one hand, you try to put your thumb in the corners of the mouth over to the sides, and you take your fingers through the gills on each side. As soon as you get a hold of them gills and you bring him out, you try to put that tail between your leg and wrap your legs around that tail to control the tail. If you don't control that tail, you don't control the fish.
Experienced noodlers take a physical beating. Their hands and fingers sometimes look like they went through a meat grinder.
It's like taking 2 wire brushes and smashing your hand between it and then jerking your hand out. Like 20,000 needles sticking you in both sides of your hand.
But it is also very dangerous, as McFarland experienced firsthand.
He ain't worth dying for. I don't care how small or how big he is, there ain't no fish worth dying for.
The catfish of the Amazon and Oklahoma are big, but nowhere near the size of the catfish found in Asia.
So the largest freshwater fish that we found was last year, and it was 9 feet in length and 646 pounds.
According to researcher Dekalia Chamupa from the World Wildlife Fund, the largest catfish are found in the Mekong Delta of Cambodia.
The Mekong giant catfish is found in the lower part of the Mekong River, which starts out in Tibet and ends in Vietnam in the South China Sea.
There is a long tradition of fishing for giant catfish. Cave paintings dating back over 1,000 years reveal how the Mekong people believed it's a sacred fish because it lives on plant matter and meditates in deep pools of the Mekong River, described as somewhat like a Buddhist monk. This Mekong cat is nearly 5 times heavier than the largest catfish in the United States. However, the catfish Lee McFarland hunts are far more aggressive.
Oh, you couldn't wipe a smile off with 12 undertakers after you get one over 50 pounds.
Noodlers target this behavior by fishing with their bare hands under riverbanks and submerged trees. A dangerous sport, most take in stride.
Oh yeah. That's not bad. Yeah. They'll be about the same size. I think
Not a bad start to a day.
Right.
Ow! Hey, he's strung up and he's biting. That ain't fair.
But not all days end this way. In 2002, at Lake Carl Blackwell in Oklahoma, McFarland met his match.
I was down there and I working this fish and I'm working him and he finally comes up and I get a hold of the fish and he gets a hold of me and I start to pull him out and he jerks me back against the rock and bangs me up. I pull him back up and I was trying to wrap my legs around him, trying to stream, trying to do everything I could down there. And as I finally come out and couldn't get a hold of him, he just started spinning with me. Had me all twisted up.
McFarland estimates the catfish was over 100 pounds, a sizable foe for even the strongest man.
He started spinning, I just couldn't hold him. He ain't worth dying for. I don't care how small or how big he is, there ain't no fish worth dying for. And that's what you always got to remember. You can always let go.
McFarland's 100-pound attacker is just a runt compared to the monster catfish of the Amazon, where Mike Nee and Brian Coe's hunt is underway. Mark Kobolts will guide the team to spots where big cats are often caught. But first they must catch the bait, piranhas and barracuda.
We got piranha?
Sí.
Around the corner?
Yes, in the lagoon.
In the lagoon?
Yeah.
Okay. And we'll troll?
Yes.
Okay.
With bait in hand, the hunt for a monster catfish begins.
You gotta look for the deep holes on the canal, the main canal, and that's where they're at, the big main canal.
Pitched out a big old piece of meat and with about a 100-pound test line and sat and waited. That's what you do.
And they do not have to wait long.
Huh. I just got a tap. Something's messing with the line. Hasn't acted large enough, but it might be something that's mouthing. Catfish will do that.
While the stories of catfish large enough to eat Amazonian children must be verified, our fear of what lurks below is unquestionably real and universal. In 1975, the blockbuster movie Jaws tapped into this fear, scaring many water lovers inland for good.
Everyone was frightened. Children were told to stay out of the water. They couldn't go swimming.
The movie is partly based on a real attack that took place in freshwater, not the ocean.
In July of 1916, 5 shark attacks took place off of New Jersey. 3 of them occurred in Matawan Creek.
Nearly 15 miles upstream from the open ocean and the brackish waters of Matawan Creek, 12-year-old Lester Stilwell and his 24-year-old would-be rescuer, Watson Stanley Fisher, were killed.
There were young boys swimming. A shark attacked 2 of the young men.
A third boy was injured later that same day in Matawan Creek. Experts believe the attacker was either a bull shark or great white, odd visitors to a tidal river just 40 feet wide.
Shark might have gone up the creek to attempt to find food. It might have simply wandered into the creek as a matter of investigating a local area.
The reason these attacks stirred such fear was because they occurred in fresh water, not in the typical hunting grounds of the Atlantic Ocean. Matawan Creek is not the only place that toothy monsters are found. Across the United States, there is a predator some call the freshwater barracuda.
I was over here and I was swimming.
In the summer of 2004, in a lake near Pine River, Minnesota, about 160 miles from Minneapolis, Blaine Johnson was attacked.
And after I started swimming, I came in to the shore, and then you could see everything in front of you, and I would just walk along the shore just seeing if I could see fish.
As he waited, bait fish and small bluegills scattered in front of each step. Little did he know that a giant fish was also watching his every move.
They saw it coming. I didn't have any idea, but I know that they just scattered. And usually when something scatters, something's up. I moved my foot up about like that, and it was almost out of the water, and the next thing I know, I just got hit. Next thing I know, I'm practically running in water. It took me about 3 seconds to get to the dock, and all I know is when I got up, there was blood on both sides of my ankle coming down.
Blaine never got a good look at the fish as it attacked from behind. The thrashing enemy churned the water to a murky brown as it held fast to his foot.
It happens so quick and you're not sure what's going on. There's just one thing in your mind, get away.
Johnson still has the scar wrapped around his foot as evidence.
The teeth mark goes up all the way up into here.
Both Johnson and wildlife experts believe the most likely culprit is a native fish, the pike. Its torpedo-like body bursts from the reeds, propelled up to speeds of 30 miles per hour. Its many rows of teeth are like razors, eviscerating its prey, and it attacks just about anything that moves.
Always when we hear about them, it's that it's a piece of a person being dangled in the water, much like you dangle a lure or something else.
Roland Sigurdson is an aquatic specialist with the Minnesota Department of Natural Resources and says attacks on people are rare but do happen.
They're an ambush predator, they're looking for movement, and they're attacking something that will fit into their mouth, something that they can swallow.
Pike are found across the northern hemisphere, and officially the largest muskie caught with a rod and tackle was 67 pounds and just over 60 inches. Roughly the same size as the largest saltwater barracuda. The pike also resembles its saltwater brethren in ferocity. The 2 largest pike are found in Minnesota, where Johnson was attacked. The northern pike with its horizontal patches, and the larger muskellunge, or muskie, with its vertical markings. Whatever it was not afraid of him.
There was blood. You know, that's all I know for sure. There was blood and teeth marks. Some of those teeth were good size. Maybe it was hungry. Maybe, you know, just saw ankle and decided, hey, let's go for it.
According to Sigurdsson, even a small pike will attack.
It was very hungry, and it took a chance on something it saw dangling in the water, and turned out, unfortunately, it was this young man.
The pike's aggressive nature seems to have no limits, including attacking its own kind. It is not known whether the smaller pike in this video was attacked for crossing an unknown boundary or if it was an intended meal. It is proof, however, of the ruthless nature of these toothy monsters.
When I first saw it, I thought, well, that's got to be like a wolf or something big.
In October of 1998, these jaws of a dead muskie were found on an island beach in the Chippewa flowage in Wisconsin, about 300 miles from Green Bay. The Wohler family were vacationing here when they came upon a carcass on the beach.
Teeth just seemed so much longer than any other thing I'd ever seen. Just amazed at the size.
There was enough of the carcass remaining to identify the monster.
Turns out it was a muskie jaw.
The jaws have been displayed in a case at the Treeland Resort for the last decade. The question is, how big was this specimen? And was it big enough to attack a man?
It could be anywhere from a really nice fish that's still probably the fish of a lifetime for a normal fisherman, on up to close to or maybe even commensurate with the world record.
There may be a way to determine the size.
When you look at the thickness of this jaw and you compare it to the thickness of a replica like a 52 would be, you can see that it's probably a good 1.5 to 2 inches wider than the head on a 52. And it's also a good 1.5 to 2 inches longer from where the hinge is actually on the fish. You know, so this tells me that this is a huge fish.
Matt Yernatich is a wildlife forensic reconstructionist for artistic anglers in Duluth, Minnesota. He has mounted many monster muskies in the last 15 years, but nothing compares with this.
It's truly a monster fish. I don't think I've ever seen a fish this big. Look how big these teeth are. Ouch. That would leave a mark. Imagine that swimming around in the lake. Heads are pretty much proportional to the body on muskies. Well, if you make the head bigger, you've got to make the body bigger.
It will take approximately 6 weeks to complete the full body, and the results could be amazing. Wisconsin is not the only place in North America with giant fish. According to this man, the cold, clear waters of the Arctic Circle hide something.
A lot of fishermen don't believe it, but I was there.
He had an encounter with a fish as big as his 14-foot boat.
I battled 40, 50-pound fish, and this thing made them look like a minnow.
In July of 1988,